Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful Uncle Rap Bastard, exhausted from last week's almost 3-hour episode. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Have you ever farted in public so bad that you were arrested for a hate crime?
No.
Okay. Never mind. I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
I've never eaten that much Taco Bell at once.
Probably
How's
why.
that?
The worst I ever had. Look at that, folks. Not even a minute in and we're talking about poop. No, back in the young days, I would eat so much fast food and I would literally explode. Now, do you think I figured out the causation of that? No, I would just repeat the cycle.
Gosh, I don't know why that happened.
Hey, I think I'll go have 2 more Big Macs. Not that that's a bad indictment of the McDonald's Corporation. In fact, if you want to give us some Big Macs to review on the long lost segment of what would we call our food segment?
American food. It's not long lost. We had it a little while ago. One of the reasons we have not had it in a while, first off, baseball stadiums aren't opening. Baseball stadiums always have food that will kill you.
And there hasn't been a KFC Double Down lately.
Or any of the other crazy stuff. Although, I saw this, I don't know when it is coming, KFC is doing a taco made from a piece of chicken, which they stole from Taco Bell. Oh, wait, they're owned by the same corporation. Never mind, I guess they can both do it.
Borrowed.
They can both do it. They're both owned by the same corporation.
Yeah. So if the good people of, I don't know, what do they call them? Yumco Foods? They used to be owned by Pepsi.
Yeah.
Want to donate that to the show. I know Corey does not eat meat, but I will certainly avail myself and give you a review of said item. We just don't want the corporations pissed at our little podcast here.
I've been watching the Daily Social Distancing Show, which is what they call the Daily Show now, and they still mock Spirit Airlines relentlessly, and they haven't been sued.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, one of the shows that used to be on Comedy Central that I loved, At Midnight, used to mock the Cheesecake Factory, and they actually had a truce the last couple of months with the Cheesecake Factory, where the Cheesecake Factory and them came to an agreement that they would instead mock Arby's.
Yeah, we're more than willing to do that. We're an equal opportunity mocker.
Now, we don't have any specific fast food places that we mock, or restaurants or companies or anything. Okay, other than DC.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't eat a lot of fast food anymore.
Well, now, Joe, you've gotten your DCBs box in the past where they have that weird bubble wrap, right?
Yeah, it drives me crazy because I saved the bubble wrap because I use it in my eBaying. I've also saved when they used to use packing peanuts. And then they got that really weird, the foam stuff where, and that I don't mind, but that I can't reuse unless.
Yeah, because that's just injected in till it fits.
Yeah, I have one box that I saved because I had ordered some omnibuses and so I have that box in case I ever sell an omnibus by maybe. So I could put it specifically for that. But yeah, otherwise that foam stuff I just toss away because I saved the box because right now any box is golden when you're eBaying. I wish I could get that through my wife's head. She likes to recycle them. I'm like, no, I like to hang on to them because when I have that big statue I'd like to sell, that big box you just threw away would have been perfect. Otherwise I got to go buy a box for $4 at Target or somewhere. Free is good.
But DC started shipping out the books through DCB service, Lunar Distribution, and they're using that same packing. And it weirded out some comic shops so much that they sent information about it to Bleeding Cool, which Bleeding Cool said, wow, they're using this weird sort of packing material for the DC books. It's like, no, that's the packing material they use for everything.
Well, and they shrink wrap everything together. They used to use bags, but now they have a shrink wrapper.
Yeah.
So everything comes shrink wrap tight and then made so it floats in the middle of the box, which is a key for you guys. I don't have to even put that in my eBay segment. You know, a lot of people throw things in the bottom of the box, put all the filler on the top. Well, if something goes through the bottom of the box, end of story. But yeah, they're really good at making it float in the middle. So good that I got a thing of bubble wrap downstairs of all that. I mean, it's weird sized and stuff, but sometimes it works for wrapping around something fragile. Fragile.
Market Fragile.
Oh, isn't that the Perky Goth in Dork Towers? Hey, it's Fragile.
Now, this week, you have been teasing this for months.
Months.
That you are going to go through your very famous sketchbook.
My beloved autograph sketchbook started back about 85. I had to have guessed. It goes from like 85 to 96. Now I started this back before gathering head sketches was a thing. I was always looking at something I could get personal. I mean, yeah, I had autographed comics, but I wasn't really keen on keeping a lot of them. And I just thought it'd be kind of fun to do. So I went out, and I don't know where I got it. It's a little sketchbook that is got colored paper in it. And I'm trying to find my tape measure because Lord knows everything is where I want it. But I think this thing is like 5 by 4. That gives you an idea when you're looking at the pictures how big these sketches are. And the reason I mention it is because as time goes on, getting head sketches was kind of a thing where people were expected to get a head sketch. When I started, I wasn't expected. And you'll hear as I go through, I'll say, well, this is what I asked for the person. Very rarely did I ask for specific things. And in hindsight, I probably should have, because I was very cognizant of the fact, even as I was talking, this had to be towards the end of high school, beginning of college when I started to do this. They're giving me something for free. Not all the time, but, so I realized I was putting them out. If I was just asking for an autograph, that's one thing. But to ask for a sketch means I'm asking for a bit of their livelihood. And I was perfectly willing to take whatever they'd give. And it backfired sometimes, and sometimes it was unexpected. But this is, unlike most of our podcasts, this is an actual, how would you say it? Interactive podcast. And what you have to do is go to Facebook. Even if you don't have a Facebook account, I believe you can still play along, but look for Crazy Joe. It's Crazy Joe Ryder is my name.
There'll be a link in the description.
That'll make it easier. Because I have my posts public. So you don't have to worry about that. That's why on Facebook, if I post it, I don't care who reads it. But if you're going in the hard way, go to photos, look for albums. And then you can not only check out all my albums, but I have one of all my Supergirl art. I have one of my cousin's Kaiser comics, which was a mini comic before mini comics were mini comics. And I even have one. Well, I have a number of them called Superhero Follies, where I take like superhero memes and things, and I just, from God knows where, and I put them together. I've kind of fallen away doing that, although I may do it again. I even have a link called Hot Comics St. Paul, where I have actual photographs of my shop and both Hot Comics and Crazy Comics, and a few of the characters that used to hang there. The one you're looking for is called My Sketchbook. And now what you do is when you're on it, hit the first picture, and you should see a picture of Don Simpson How you know to go to the next one, left to right, you're going to go to the right, and then you'll find your little arrow. And whenever you hear the sound, that means go to the next one. That's a kind of throwback to those of you who used to remember film strips in the 70s. If you were either running the film strip machine or it was an automatic, you'd hear this bing, and that would tell you to go to the next one. Now, in an automatic
kind of the early version of a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. And now the cool thing was if it was automatic, you didn't have to. But if you were the guy doing the film strip and you were bored as hell as iPhone, you'd fall asleep and bing, and you wouldn't move it. And the teacher was like, Joe, that's neither here nor there. Okay, the first one on the line. This is one of the rare ones that I actually had to pay for. And I think one of the reasons why is because I asked for something very specific. This is Don Simpson, or Donald, as he's known. At the time, he was doing a book called Megaton Man. This is why I brought Corey along. Corey, tell the folks about Megaton Man.
Megaton Man was a superhero parody before the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles made everything a parody. It was superhero parody. He was kind of a big, dumb superhero living in a world of other superheroes. And if you've seen The Tick, it's a lot like it, except it came first.
And it was outrageously hilarious. I don't know I think Pat talked about it back in my Solo Joe when I interviewed him, but there was a thing where Pat came in one day to pick up, because we saw this coming. We knew it was going to be hot, and he'd ordered like 20 copies. And the guy who's on duty at the comic shop, not the owner, stiffed Pat on this. And he never did get it. He's
still mad.
He's still mad. And I think he mentioned it. There's other things, too, because Don Simpson was friends of John Nunziata of St. Paul Comic, or at least he sounds like he was. And he actually came to one of the first Comic Cons that Pat and I did. I actually have a flyer of it called the 4th Annual Twin Cities Con. It was held downtown St. Paul in 7 Corners, and headlining was Don Simpson, and he was hot. He was image status hot. That's how big a deal this guy was. And Chaz Truog, thank you. He was doing Coyote at the time. Corey, tell him about Coyote.
Coyote was a book by Steve Englehart. It started at Eclipse, but it moved over to Epic, was the second Epic book. And also, I think it's issue 16 was the first professional art by Todd McFarlane.
Hack. He'll never.
He'll never amount to anything.
Megaton, I think it's, I'm looking for it. Megaton Man number, you'd think I could find it because there's a hot chick on the cover. There it is, number 8. And Don Simpson had a way of drawing women, too. That was just outrageous. And I believe
which he later used on the book we make fun of all the time.
Oh, yes.
Wendy Whitebread Undercover Slide.
Yes. Check it out. It's legit.
It's don't check it out.
Well, I mean, whatever.
Ooh.
So anyways, Megaton Man number 10 has a cameo appearance by John Nunziata, the owner of Hot Comics. I'm sorry, St. Paul Comics. This was years before Hot Comics. And Don went on to do a glass for him that he was going to make a collector thing. He also did a portfolio that I guess has been reprinted online that Don did. And these were things that John was going to do forever. Pat and I had set up at one of these cons, and I know this is the story that I've said in the past, but we like to say that we were the ones that ruined collecting for dealers, because we did an outrageous thing, Corey. Can you guess what that was?
I already know this story. You gave a discount.
How dare we?
How dare you?
Discounting our books 20%. We're going to ruin the market. And by God, they were right. All I think about is that
the market has since been ruined.
Yep, it's way forward, but that's way in the future when we did our 24 hours 75% off sale. But that's in the future. See, this is how Pat and I single-handedly ruin comic books. However, going back, I'm a naive 18, probably 17, 18-year-old. I asked Don about Border Worlds, and I said, well, could you do me like a specific sketch? Could you have Megaton Man reading an issue of Border World and then have them threatening him to retire? Now look at the panel and you'll see what I got. Retire or else. So Border Worlds, of course, was another book that Don went into after Megaton Man. That was more of a kind of a detached story of life on a domed space station. I believe it was IDW reprinted both volumes in a really cool trade paperback that we reviewed a while back. So,
and Don keeps saying he's working on new stories with it. So
I believe he is, because every so often I see a post of something. So that is really exciting. In my opinion, the first run of Megaton Man was hilariously brilliant. I've seen him come back, and I just hasn't done the same for me.
By the end of the first run, he was taking that world much more seriously. And then the second run was more, he wasn't doing as many jokes. It was, okay, I'm treating these characters seriously, which, I'm sorry, does not work for a parody comic.
Yeah. And plus, I think there's been so many other parody comics, so it's hard to come back. So that was my first sketch. And what happened is, because I think I paid Don $5, and back then comics were $60, so 60 cents. And so that was a lot of money. So that probably changed my mentality to like, oh, okay, I'm not going to ask for specific things. I'm really pleased with what he did, but it kind of maybe shocked me out a little bit. So let's, here's the noise. Okay, that's the last time I'm going to warn you. After this, you're on your own. Next one is who we talked about earlier, Chaz Truog, doing Coyote. And he was doing it at the time. Again, I asked for a sketch, and he didn't ask who, but obviously this is who he was doing. And you'll see why it's important to ask for something, because you'll see when we get to a little bit later on. Speaking of adult comics, the next page, this is Reed Waller doing the art and Kate Worley doing the little sketch. Corey, tell the folks who this is.
They lived in Minneapolis, and they did Omaha the Cat Dancer, published through Kitchen Sink. Also, by the way, I want to point out that Megaton Man was published through Kitchen Sink. So
yes.
A lot of Kitchen Sink people used to show at our early conventions. But Reed was a local artist. Kate was the writer. And they did Omaha the Cat Dancer, which finished up a few years ago. And now I guess Reed is looking into getting it reprinted, which is weird that they're having trouble finding somebody to print it.
I don't get it, because what happened is Omaha the Cat Dancer started at Steel Dragon, which was a local publisher, and then went to Kitchen Sink, and then few issues went to Fantagraphics. And I believe the series was never finished in comic book form, but later on finished as a graphic novel. And I never have bought the graphic novels. I thought for a while they were online, but judging by what you said, Corey, they're probably out of print. Or maybe they're available. Google Omaha the Cat Dancer and you can find it. Fantastic series. It had titillation. It was done, what do you call it? Anthropomorphic?
Yep, anthropomorphic. It wasn't titillation. This was a full-on adult comic with sex depicted on panel.
Yep. But not gratuitously. If it happened, it was because the main character, Omaha the Cat Dancer, loved, and again, this has been years since I read this. I don't remember the name of her boyfriend. And so they were in a relationship, but I don't want to get too much into it. But anyways, as it went on, it covered different controversies that were local. Like one of the big things is somebody in a way to cut down on adult dancing entertainment areas said you could not have you couldn't have dancing in the same place that they served booze. So what one place did, the Faust down on Dale and University Avenue in St. Paul. They cut I guess the women would dance at one address, and they removed the wall between the two complexes. They put a glass wall, and you would sit with your adult beverage and watch them through the glass. So, and they talk about this type of stuff. She gets in all sorts of wild adventures. I enjoyed the series thoroughly. I remember meeting Reed Waller at a different con, and I'll talk about it when we get to it, where he was just set up in the corner. And I told him, I always loved reading your book, and I actually felt sometimes like I was a voyeur when I watched these two have sex or make love, because it wasn't that, this is titillating adult porn comic. No, it was like you followed your friends into their bedroom, and now you're watching them make love. And he said that was an interesting observation. He said, I kind of wanted it to feel that way. So no matter, it's just like if you were to follow somebody 24/7 and get to know them way more than you wanted to. Sadly, one of the reasons why the comic kind of faded was Kate Worley passed away before it was over. Reed and Kate were a couple at the time. They broke up, but Kate got married, but then they were able to get together. And I don't know how they broke up, so don't read into what I said. But later they started the story up. I believe she caught lung cancer and passed away before it was over. Her husband and Reed were able to finish up the series, and I'm knocking on wood that they get it reprinted sometime, because it's a fun series, and I've never been able to finish it because of what we talked about. Next page is probably the most cosmic thing you'll ever hear: the Winslow Doctoral Thesis by Phil Folio. Winslow is it's a stuffed alligator. And the amazing thing about him is that he survived the end of the universe, and he comes into this universe. Because he has such an esteemed thing, he's often worshipped by other races to the point of genocidal war. If you don't believe in the Winslow, you're going to get destroyed. The last time he was located was on Earth, I think around the mid-'80s, I think. And consequently, all the spacefaring races put up signs saying, careful, don't go to Earth, Winslow ahead, which is probably why we've been left alone all these years. You don't believe me? Google Winslow's doctoral thesis. Pick up almost any series that Phil Folio has done. I don't know if the Winslows appeared in Girl Genesis or not.
Girl Genius.
Genius Genesis. Because what I'm thinking is, I know he appeared in Buck Godot. He appeared in Myth Adventures.
Oh, yeah.
That was a series based off the book by Robert Aspen. And that's where you'll find the Winslow doctoral thesis. But I think if you Google it, you can just find it online. It's hilarious. It's true. You've been warned. This next one, I'm going to have to stop for a minute because I have to use atomicavenue.com. Corey, have you ever heard of Entropy Tales?
Yes.
This is from one of the artists on Entropy Tales. And it's, by the way, the Phil Folio, I believe this was at one of MCBA's earlier shows. So, because I do remember walking up to him and was like, do you remember the Winslow? He goes, of course. Could I have a Winslow? Now, Corey and I we've talked about our college radio days. Dreamhaven was located in Dinkytown, and at the time, they started their own publishing company, headed by our good buddy Al Payne, and one of their first titles was Entropy Tales, and this is 1986. I had the radio show going, and I made a comment to Al. I said, why don't you guys come on the radio show I'm doing, and I'll interview you about the comic. Yeah, this college radio, it fits. And he said, what a great idea. So the guys who showed up were Michael Waltz, Timothy Fay, and somebody you probably never heard of, Pete Krause. This was edited by another guy, Paul Ewert, probably never heard of him. And he's one of our friends of the show who listen. And so they came on to promote the show. This is I don't have the copy of Entropy Tales, but you guys can interact. I'm gonna go kind of quick on this one because this is oops, where'd it go? Somebody keeps texting me and I keep losing my my picture. Okay, so the first picture is Neil. The next one is a very, very early Pete Krause. We're going to come back to this one, so keep an eye on it. He's doing his own character called Nightwolf, which Pete ended up doing 2 issues of. And when I am very, very bored, I love to bring this out and tease Pete with it. The next one is Timothy McVeigh, and I believe his character was called Star Fox. And they both did these sketches for me while in the studio, and that's hence what the whole radio thing that Timothy McVeigh is doing, which was really, really cool. It was a great interview. I had it on tape. We're using cassette tapes, and while I was talking with Pete, and Pete has got a natural voice. I think I talked with Pete in one of our blurbs on an MCBA show that we actually did. It wasn't the live one. Maybe it was. I don't remember. But if you ever heard Pete, he's beautiful voice, and we really got to work to get him on the show sometime. But he was talking, and I looked up, and we haven't earned our explicit rating in a while. That cassette tape jammed. This is one of the. I'm going to revisit this angst a few times. Oh, if I had this thing now, it would be so cool. Just a piece of comic book history. These 3 guys talking about their characters, talking about publishing, things like that. Gone. Just gone. You know, the machine chewed it up so well. Trust me, you're going to be sighing even harder as we keep going. But these 3 represent that Entropy Tales. You can find these probably in dollar bins. I have no idea if the first issue's gone up because Pete Krause isn't a hot artist. If you contact Paul Ewert, he's on Facebook. He says he has cases of these things somewhere. I don't think Al Payne has any. By the way, Al Payne didn't show up. Too early for him. You know, 7 in the morning, whatever. So college radio days. Oh, what fun. All right. Corey, do you recognize this character?
I recognize the character as Domino Chance.
That is correct. Domino Chance. Tell them about Domino Chance, Corey.
I never read Domino Chance. It was one of those books that came out during the black and white boom, and I always thought that the art looked cool, but I never saw an issue of it, so I never picked one up.
You know why? Because he was a local artist. So I believe it was self-published, and no, I need that.
Oh, that's right.
She's taking my bell.
I'm taking it.
Still works.
Oh, great. Now people have
Whoa, sorry.
gone
Back
ahead
up.
12.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ironic, because like I said, let me use a wine glass. Anyways, Domino Chance was self-published, which is probably why you didn't find it anywhere. Copies are surprisingly expensive for black and white, and I vaguely remember reading it. I sold my collection on the eBays years ago. I had the complete run, and I don't know Kevin Lena, Lenagh, Lena. I don't know if he's in comics currently or if this is just something he did, but he was very popular in the at least in our local area. And again, it must have been a pretty good black and white because there's a second printout of the #1. So this was at a con. I believe this was at the second, or in this case, the 4th Twin Cities Con that John Nunziata put on. And I'm just guessing because you'll see some of the guests that were on it. Matter of fact, let's pop to the next one. Here's where I discovered you have to pretty much ask for something. Again, this is Chaz Truog. At the time, he was doing Zeman, Chmen, and I asked for a sketch, and this is what he gave me. I have no fucking clue what it is. But
It's the Eye of Horus.
Okay, but I don't know if that had anything to do with Z-Man or if he was just doing this because he could do it.
He was just doing it because he could do it.
Yeah.
Z-Man, it's actually X-M-E-N, X-Men without the dash. And then he had in the logo pronounced Z-Man was a black and white parody book.
Yeah. So he must have been off.
Bajillions.
Yeah, he must have been off of Coyote at the time. So
yep, Coyote had been canceled and he had not started Animal Man yet.
Yeah. So this is 1987, to give you an idea. I don't know if you recognize this guy, Corey.
Waiting for it to load.
I
do not.
Okay. Flaming Carrot. That is not Flaming Carrot.
Bob Burden sketch.
Yeah, but that's one of the guys that would be floating around in the background of Flaming Carrot. Again, I should have asked for Flaming Carrot, but I was to the point where, I just asked for something, and he gave me this guy, and I recognize because this is a character that floats in the background of Flaming Carrot. Bob Burden did Flaming Carrot, which was published, 83. The last one I think came out maybe 2002, maybe all sorts of publishers. Hilarious, a mix of superhero action, serial comedy. To this day, I know my daughter has a copy of this because there's one where I'm trying to find it here. Flaming Carrot's looking down and there's a spider coming at him and he's like, a giant spider with diapers on. Gah! I think that pretty much sums up Flaming Carrot. Corey, you got anything else to add on this?
They have done, Dark Horse did complete reprinting, and I guess it's now being reprinted again.
Oh joy. Yes, it's so much fun. The superhero of the last resort. And if they could easily, I hope they do an omnibus because he had stuff. I believe he started in Cerebus, didn't he?
It didn't start in Cerebus, but there was issues in Cerebus.
And there was a crossover with Cerebus. I think yes. Cerebus was hallucinating. So you never know where you're going to find Flaming Carrot. This one I'm a little, I don't know. This guy was kind of a hack. He draws so fast. He just doesn't know what he's doing. He's never going to last in the business. I keyed. If you don't recognize this as Gru, well, I guess I really can't blame you. No, I can. There's been a Gru comic recently. Dark Horse has done a few of them. This was back, Corey, 87. Where was Gru being published at the time? Epic. So
because they had newsstand distribution.
So Gru obviously is for, super artist Sergio Aragones. He was at the March 21st, 22nd, the 5th annual Twin Cities Comic Con, and maybe the last because I don't have any flyers beyond this. Sergio was there, Bob Burden was there, Chaz was there. And he did this quick sketch for me. And at the time, he was just introducing Rafferto, the dog. And again, go back to the interview with Pat, because Pat is very proud of the fact that Sergio asked him, I don't know about this dog character. Should I keep him? And Pat said, yeah, he's one of my favorite parts. So because Pat said that, that's why Rafferto is still part of Gru. You have Pat Gruber to thank for that. Right?
Of course.
The next one is one that people go, oh my God, where did you get that? Art Spiegelman from Mouse. And as it says, I'm very proud, Joe, another page in the book. Okay, I'll tell the story. And this had to be 87. Again, I'm working WMMR. Again, WMMR was a radio station in New York. Why they chose those letters, I don't know, but it was just a cable-only college radio station, so they could get away with it. Now it's Radio K, which is a really cool alternative college station. So Art was coming to Dreamhaven Books. This was their store in Dinkytown, on 4th Avenue. If you're driving down 4th Avenue, it would have been on the right corner before they went across the street and took over 2 levels. I asked if I could come in and interview Art, and Greg said, sure. I arranged to have somebody take my cassette tape, you see it coming, don't you, and record the interview for me. Back in radio, you always wanted to make a demo tape, and I figured since I still thought I might have a career in radio, that would be cool. Here I have a radio of somebody who is being interviewed for a book that is taking the literary world by storm. At the time, only the first book of Mouse was published. And I interviewed him. I remember frankly asking why mice. And he said, I get asked that question all the time. I give different answers. I really don't know. It just worked together. And again, I wish the tape is lost. Whoever recorded it for it allegedly put it in my mailbox. I have no idea if it actually did go over. I think it did. Because at the time, I did a radio show, my spoof on Dr. Demento, and I think we've talked a little bit about it in the past, and Dreamhaven was actually a sponsor, my only sponsor of the show. So when I said, hey, I'm going to do this, they thought, well, this is kind of a neat idea. So I took what they used as their remote, it reminds me of a MASH crank phone. Plug it in the phone line. I would dial the station would dial it in, and then we did it. I have no idea if they blew me off, if it was recorded. I was told it was recorded, and they said that it went out wild, but it's gone, and it kills me to this day. The only remnants I have of this, other than if you want to go talk to Greg Ketter, he probably remembers, is that I asked Art not only to autograph my Mouse copy number 1, but then he put this in my sketchbook, which is just amazing. I mean, and now Art is Art Spiegelman, and I don't even know if you could get a sketch from him because it sounds like he gets mobbed wherever he goes. Oops, sorry, I put my fork down. All right, Corey, tell the folks about Brenda Starr.
Brenda Starr is a comic strip character. She's been around since, the 30s?
Oh, yeah.
And she is a reporter, and I have not seen the strip in years. I don't even know if it's still going because I know some of the old strips have stopped. But let's see, this is Dale Masick.
Yep, Messick. And they also, it's a number of comic books. In 55, Carlton did like a 3-issue series jumping to different things. So if you go to atomicavenue.com, put in Brenda Starr, you'll see all the different comics. And Dale pretty much did all of them. And they were at Dreamhaven. You'll see who promoting a book. To this day, I wish I knew what. That either Dale or the next writer, probably the next writer did. I have vague recollections that I also did a radio show with them. It probably wasn't as detailed as the one with Art because I knew more about Mouse because I actually read it. Whereas with this was more introduction and things like that. But look at that picture. Yes, that is just an amazing sketch that she did for me. Now, the person that she was with was this person, Trina Robbins. And I know Corey knows who this is.
That's Little Lulu.
Oh, yeah.
And that's an amazing Little Lulu, by the way.
I know. And here's where I one of the first things I started doing. Obviously, I was going to have Dale do Brenda Starr, even though I don't have a clue who Brenda Starr was. Trina asked, who is your favorite female comic book character? And that's who she drew. And these two, again, I'm going to have to research a little bit more. They might have been doing a book, because why else would you come? Or they'll...
Yes, it was the book Trina did about female artists in comics.
Thank you. And obviously at the time, Dreamhaven was a big supporter of comics and independent artists, and that's why they came for a signing. Now, I will say, I do know with Art, it was a bad snowy day and the turnout wasn't so great, which is probably why I got to interview him quite a bit. I also remember calling the radio station and say, I'm going to take home the remote unit. I wanted to check because they use the same thing when they did sports show. That's how high tech we were. They would get to wherever they were going, be it a Gophers game, football, hockey, baseball, find a phone line, plug it in, and the guys would get play by play over the phone. And then if you're DJing, you had to make sure the connection was running. Again, I don't remember if I did an interview with these guys, but I definitely went to go see them. And this, again, was at Dreamhaven Books. So, all right. I'm trying to get this one up. I'm not. My bell is too fast.
Corey, I can tell you who this is.
I know. Okay, tell.
Well, I don't know the name of the character, but this is Pete Krause, who went on to do a long run at Vertigo on Lucifer, and this was his earliest work, Empire Lanes, which was a book I absolutely loved. He self-published, and then they did an issue with Kamiko. 3 characters from a fantasy realm, pretty much like Dungeons and Dragons, show up in our world at a bowling alley called Empire Lanes.
Yeah.
And this is the dwarf. This is the dwarf fighter character.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a piece of original art or if it's a Pete had described to me what it was, and I may have to ask him about it. But one of my favorite scenes is they had a fighter who was cursed, and he always had to wear a helmet, and they were being attacked because in the portal was, or in Empire Lanes was the portal they escaped from, and the people who were chasing them came through, and so they had to fight back. And he was like, "Do something!" What? Throw a thunderball or something. Again, bowling thunderball. So the fighter picks up the bowling ball, overhands it, and boom, scatters a troop. So that's the thunderball. I like it. If you can find copies or the book of Empire Lanes, get it. It is fascinating. Is Pete, has he had problems with his hands?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't want to cast aspersions. I thought there was a reason why he wasn't drawing anymore. But this was at the MCBA con at the VFW, or the Legion Hall. Were you at that one?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the first
one we did. This was before you were involved.
Yeah, no, Pat and I were there as retailers.
Right. You weren't on the committee yet.
Yeah, we weren't on the committee yet. So that means, again, and this is why I love doing this with you, Corey, because that means that first Philfolio had to have been at one of John's cons, not at an MCBA show. So I've got proof I was at one of the first shows. In case you need more proof, here we revisit Philfolio again. And at the time he was doing Star Blazers for Kamiko. And so I asked him, could you do me the Star Blazer characters? And he said he didn't have a reference. So I ran around, found a dealer let me borrow the copy, brought it over, and this is what he did for me, which was very, very cool. And again, Phil, too many P's. He's doing the Girl Genius. So hang on a second while I load up the next one.
So we have to let you whip this out?
No, I'm having problems too. Here, I thought the computer was already. Corey might recognize this next one.
When it comes up on my screen,
yep.
Facebook is slow today.
Yeah.
Everybody's posting their bleach jokes.
Yeah.
Come on. It's not loading, so go ahead.
All right. If I say Seth Hayden, Cindy Goff, Ralph Neves, does that ring a bell?
Yes, Tales from the Heart.
Yep. This was back, I'm trying to find, let's see, in 88 This would have been 88. I think. Well, I know this. The early issues were published by Entropy Tales, or by Entropy, the same guys who did the book we were talking about earlier. The first two were them, and then it went to Slave Labor. So that at this time they were being published by Slave Labor, which was were they based in Minneapolis?
No, Slave Labor is, they still exist.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of, a little. San Francisco.
Okay.
Most people would know them as the publisher of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I know them as the publisher of Gloom Cookie.
Yeah. Well, they were doing.
Also, they did a lot of Evan Dorkin stuff.
Oh yeah. They were doing Tales from the Heart, which was their autobiographical comic that was them going to Africa on a young Peace Corps volunteer. So I believe the artist who on the bottom there, I can't read my own writing, Situ Hayden, he did this, and then Raphael and Cindy both put their little things, their little signatures in there. This was something I caught from way back. If you remember the Omaha the Cat Dancer photo, what I did is I was explaining to Reed and Kate why I was able to read it, because, you know, I kept telling my mom it was anytime she'd find my dirty undergrounds, I'd be like, oh, well, they're collector items. And so what I did is I asked, Reed, would you draw, my ma is quoted as saying, what kind of pictures are these? And if you look back at that picture, that's what
yes,
she's looking at that. And then Kate drew her little thing, psst, dirty if you do it right. So they kind of did that. That was kind of my way to kind of engage the writer. And that was the same thing here. Seti did the renditions, and then these guys wrote, Cindy wrote, this is not me, and Raphael said, this is me. So it was kind of neat to see all three of them. Tales from the Heart went through Entropy, Slave Labor. A couple issues were published by Epic. I think it's a good, worthy.
I love that book. I loved that book.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever see it come back, but it's just the way it goes in publishing. So go ahead and head to the next page. Yeah, this is comic artist Greg Euler. I don't know if at the time he was doing anything.
Yes.
Was he doing?
He did there was the Hawk and Dove miniseries.
Okay.
Which was drawn by, come on, Joe.
Oh, was that Liefeld or?
Yes, that was Rob Liefeld's pretty much almost only worked for DC for years and years and years and years. And why did Rob Liefeld throw a fit and leave and go to Marvel?
I don't know.
He drew the last issue of the miniseries sideways.
Odd.
And when he turned it in, DC kind of went, what did you do here? Oh, I thought it'd be more exciting if I did it, blah, 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 blah. We didn't ask you to do this. If you're going to do something like that, you need to get approval first. And Carl Kessel, who was the writer and inker, had to completely mess with the art to have it fit like a regular comic. Rob was so mad, he went over to Marvel and asked if they had any work, and they said, sure, here's New Mutants. The Hawk and Dove miniseries sold well enough that it got a regular series, and Greg Euler was the artist on at least the early issues. He was also local, I do believe.
He was. And what I asked him is, could you do me... Actually, I don't think I asked him anything. He just drew I said, who's your favorites? And obviously this was who his favorites were. But he drew the originals, and I said, yeah, I'm still dead. So good humor on that one. I believe this was one of the few. He moved out to California, didn't he? Wasn't that kind of the beckoning call for a lot of artists?
A lot of artists who were at our early conventions were able to get jobs in animation because there was a gentleman here who was an executive, kind of a freelance producer for the Spielberg Warner Brothers thing. And I knew him. I actually visited him at his studio a few times because we became friends. He's one of those guys who came into Chinder's and started talking with me, and we became friends. And long before I knew what he was doing, but he would actually go to the convention and kind of chat people up and say, well, if you're looking for work, that's he picked up a lot of artists in the early days of the MCBA there. So I don't know if Greg was one of those, but he very well could be.
I think he might have been. The next one is John Lewis, who at the time was doing a book called True Swamp, which was, and John got some really, really awesome acclaim for the work that he did.
Joe, what is the most important first for True Swamp?
For True Swamp?
Joe, no, yeah.
I do not know.
It was the first of the Zurich grant, which was a grant created by the people who did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. When they got their TV money, they created a grant for people. And True Swamp was I believe it was the first book to get one of those grants.
Now, John was kind of gracious with me because I misidentified one of his characters, Lenny the Leaf Frog. I thought this was Lenny. And he said, no, it's not. And he goes, well, I'm really taken by this. What is it? Well, you can read it. It's Lump Boy, a fertility icon found in both Alaskan Inuit and New Zealand Maori tribal lore. So John just wasn't your normal, hey, I'm going to do a black and white comic guy. He had some chops behind him. John also did a pretty decent run on Robin. I'm talking Batman and issues 110 through 120, and I don't remember the year because I didn't write it down. After that, I don't know where he went. He's, again, a guy who is out there probably. But, hey, John, if you're there, give us a call. I loved your early stuff. Not enough to keep it, though. It was one of those that, his early stuff is amazingly expensive on the eBays, considering as it was a black and white. And he had a couple different runs. And I'm trying to Google. He did another book. Let's see, True Swamp, Stone Ground, and Hillbound, Underwoods, and Overtime. And I thought he did a third book, but I don't remember what it was. Corey, you feel like reading some stuff for me?
I could. Wow, this handwriting's not that great.
Well, I can read it too because it's kind of blurred. Corey, have you ever, and you might not have ever, walked up to a writer and said, hey, could you draw something for me?
Only one.
This is the first and only time I've ever done that. At the time, this is writer Nick Pallotta. At the time, he and Phil Folio were doing a book called Illegal Aliens. If you can find a copy of it, do it. It's freaking hilarious about the first contact that aliens have with the world. And the first half of the book is different from the second half of the book. Nick authored it. Phil did some illustrated stuff on certain versions that were later edited out on other ones. So essentially they were side by side. So you could see here's Dummy Joe, who went and said, hey, could you do me Star Blazers from Phil? And then I came up to Nick, could you do it? He said, I'm a writer. And so I walked away kind of feeling stupid. And then I came back and said, would you write me something? And this is what he did. He took this, and while he was sitting and fending off people, he wrote, the heavy slugs from his looming magnum punched the hooded assassin across the living room, a grisly spray of blood and brains spattering the stucco walls, only a heartbeat before the man's limp body slammed into the corner. 2,000 pounds of cooling meat drenched in a sauce of his own life fluid. Yuck, said the hero, holstering his gun. So I have to laugh because Peter David always talked about how people are always coming up to me and asking me to draw something. Nobody ever asked, I'm a writer. Nobody asked me to write something. Well, and now, of course, people do, so he doesn't. But this was long before Pete uttered those words, and kudos to Nick for doing this. I mean, it was just amazing. I got a little piece of my own original Nick. Nick passed away in 2013. So it's just one of those things where you look back and, I just have my own memory with him. And
you know who else has some memories, Joe?
Who's that?
These guys, our sponsors. Believe it or not, kids, this here podcast has sponsors. And that sponsor, since day one, is DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best, bar none, web host in the whole known universe. And if you need a website, head on over to DreamHost.com, put in code KRAYZ, that's KRAYZ, and get $20 off your first year. Now, if you would like to advertise here on any of the Solitaire Rose Network podcasts, you can. Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject advertising. Also, head on over to eBay and look for user KRAYZ, Krayz. That's Joe Crazy Writer, who's always telling us about the eBay in every episode of Crazy Comics and Stories. If you would like to contact us, you can do so. You can give us a call at 952-856-0519. Leave a message and we'll play it on the show. Or you can send us an email at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks.
That's a good thing to throw them in.
And if you want to know about writing, well, guess what? I write and I do other podcasts and I talk about them here. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is filled with all kinds of audio goodness. First, there's Crazy Comics and Stories. It's been going since 2010. It drops every Monday, and it has me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, and Joe Crazy Writer talking comics, shenanigans, and whatever we're freaking and geeking about. Every Monday morning. It's been going since 2010, and it's available at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. Also on that same feed is the Solitaire Rose Podcast, which is me, again, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, doing interviews, talking about comics history, pretty much talking about whatever I want to talk about. We've also got Solo Joe, where Joe Crazy Writer does a solo podcast, and he hasn't done one in a while, so kick him in the shins to get him started. We also, on that same feed, have Solitaire Rose Series and Review, where we do DVD commentary of older comic book series. That's all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. I also do a podcast with Wolfie B. Bad at badadvice.solitairerose.com, where we take listener questions and give them bad advice. There's also Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. There's also Fantastic Forecast, where myself and Adam Vermillion are going through the entire run of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. And if you think that I'm on all of these podcasts, you're wrong, because Scrabbling Across the West is at scrabbling.solitairerose.com, where musician Dave Cofell and his wife Stephanie travel across America and then sitting down to play Scrabble and talk about the day. That's at Scrabbling Across the West, scrabbling.solitairerose.com. There are always more podcasts at the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network. Be there. Aloha. Joe said to cut him off when he'd done an hour or so.
Yeah.
So we will go through this at another time.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is taking a lot longer than I thought. This is all off. Do you just want to do it as a segment? And I could do like 1 or 2?
We'll see how this goes.
Okay. Wait a minute. I thought you got well. I haven't even gotten to the fun stories yet. The ones where you're involved.
I'm involved?
Yeah. You'll know them when we get to them.
Okay.
So anyways,
you know what I'm not involved in, Joe?
We're going to take off here we're still at the con. Oh, wait a minute. We might be going, that was 89. So we're still at an MCBA con. We'll leave it at that. I don't know Corey yet. He's wandering around doing con stuff, but I will know him. Oh yeah, I will.
You know what I'm not involved with, Joe?
Well, social distancing, because you never leave your home.
No, that's not true. I do leave my home and I go to the group home where we really can't social distance. But the
That's
thing
why I said you don't do social distancing.
Yeah, you said I never leave my home. That's not accurate.
I don't believe
the
that.
thing I am not involved in is your favorite part of the show. No, not filling that glass with Fireball and slamming it down. No, it's Joe. What's going on the eBays?
eBays, it's still going pretty strong. I don't know if it's the time of year or just people are bored and they're trying to fill in collections and things like that. So I've been loading stuff up. I've been selling stuff. Let's take a look at some of the things that sold. Still got Gruber's run of Dynamite magazines. They're going pretty good. You know, and again, they're uncommon because Pat was as anal as I was about, well, actually, I ripped my Dynamites to pieces, but he kept his in good shape. So there are a few in there where the posters are intact, the stickers, well, if they haven't stuck to anything, they might have, it's just uncommon. I mean, these are magazines from the 70s into the 80s. This was how I learned about stuff. Nowadays, you just Google it or Corey will recommend it or whatever. But this is how I found out that Christopher Lee was Dracula. This is how I found out about Doctor Strange. This is how I found about the Invisible Man, sharks, Doctor Doom, elephants. Elephants? Oh, yeah. It was amazing. I mean, a magazine like this probably couldn't survive today because I don't think kids would have the patience to read. Plus, by the time you publish it, it's old news. Some of the other things that sold, one of the Russ Colcran EC reprints from 1992, The Haunt of Fear. It's one of those things I read. It was fun. But, you know, I'll go out and get the collections if I can afford them. A couple variant covers, Barbarella de Torres, #1, black and white variant cover. I just sell them. I don't ask. Corey, do you remember the soda Surge?
Yes. My son was addicted to it.
Oh, and we sold it at the shop. And of course, in 1997, they had a mail away where you could, I don't know if you just mailed away or if you had to send in certain things, probably just mail away. But they'd give you a CD that had a bunch of bands that I've never heard of, but I remember listening to it. They had all sorts of fun things and then some coupons, and you could even go to Blockbuster Music. Ooh, I wonder if that one's still good. But I have it, had it, sold it. Sold a couple Simpson comics. I talked about finding that Power Girl #27, the last issue of the run from 2011. That's insanely expensive because nobody bought it because the next month, tell them what was next month, Strode.
That was the new 52.
Aha. And then there's some 52, a couple odd things like a Tom Mix Westerns #2 from AC Comics, which I believe reprinted stuff. I had a Tribe #1. That was Larry Stroman's book from when he was in Image. He was doing X Factor. Again, I will talk about it when we get to it in the sketchbook, but I was at a con he was at, did not think to approach him for a sketch. I don't know why. I actually sat in a panel where he talked about it, and I remember Jess got a sketch of it where he got a sketch from him, and we were sitting at the table because I know it was Kansas City, and Gruber and I had set up, and I think Dan and Brian set up too. So this had to have been probably 82 because I went to a lot of cons, and Lord did I didn't know or 92 because I didn't know I'd be owning a comic shop at the end of that year. But all of a sudden, Larry Stroman was across from us just talking to people, and I tend not to want to bother somebody when they're talking. All of a sudden, Jess comes flying because what it was is Larry did one of these how to draw comics, and I think Jess scored one of the pictures, and he come flying by. Dude, I got a Larry Stroman thing, and Jess was just a little skinny nosebleed kid, and Larry kind of looked over and just smiled like, oh man, somebody like that. That was kind of fun. This one was the rare white cover gold logo variant cover. Again, the image was really big on the gold logo
Oh,
cover. Gold, very valuable. I picked this one up, Lord knows where. I know I didn't have it personally signed, but somebody asked and made an offer on it. I said yes. So I sold it because that's the way I roll. I sell. A couple other things to mention. I did a quick half-price sale of all my runs of comics, miniseries runs. I figured not a lot of them would sell because they're not really collectible. I mean, I sold Damned from Image 1997. This was when they had their homage line. This was done, I believe, by Steve Grant and Mike Zeck. From Boom, Broken World, number 1 through 4 from 2015. From Dark Horse, Father's Day, number 1 through 4. All these series I read, but I never kept. I know you're thinking to yourself, well, Joe, I would have given you a best offer on that Tribe, or how come I didn't see that half-price sale? Well, you don't have to, because if you're interested, all you have to do is send me a note via eBay's line. Tell me what you'll make an offer for, or the question I hate: how much would you take for this? Well, I'm only asking $4.95, but I'll take $100. So
it's like when people say, Corey, would you like to work tonight? No, I wouldn't. I will, but would I like to? No, I'd like to stay in my bed and read comic books all day.
Yeah, exactly. What would I like to do? I'd like to win the lottery and buy things myself and support local comic shops, but I can't. So if you want to, send me a note, because then it allows me to send you back a message that says, here's what I'll offer for it. And being if I know you're a listener to the show, I've been known to give away silly stuff, not only in terms of prices, but I might just grab one of these things in my vast accumulation of crap and
make your wife happy and get rid of it.
Yeah, make her happy and get rid of it.
So, now we got to turn the page.
Can't turn it. Yeah, keep turning the page, people. Anyways, it's under Crazy, Krayz, Krayz. Yeah, I gotta lubricate more when I'm at. There we go. Come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I create a countdown clock for when Final Fantasy VII will be coming to the Xbox. No, it's Freaking and Geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
I ranted off broadcasts about this, but, my mom and dad are older. They're giving away stuff. And what I find is as they're giving away stuff, my brother and sister are freaking out like, that's mine. And I'm like, come take it. I'm going through my own giveaway phase. Hence the great purge of, was it 2018?
Yeah.
Plus, when we move in 4 years, as cool as it is, I mean, I got these, I don't know if you ever saw the civil defense cans that were usually put in fallout shelters. One was a filter for water. One would be filled with food.
Oh, yeah.
And I've seen them in antique stores for going from $60 to $100. And my dad had a couple of them. And for some reason, my brother wants them. They're his. No, they're not. They've been sitting in Dad's freaking garage for years. I took them because Dad said, take them. So my brother and sister are going through a big umbrage phase. Oh, you're taking everything and selling it on eBay. Yeah, but nothing I'm getting from Mom and Dad. I think I ranted back when my ma gave me all of her china.
Yes.
Yeah. And now my sister wants it. And I asked my mom, why didn't you give it to her? She said no. So there's a lot of family drama, and it's getting me down, man. I mean, I got enough stuff to deal with my eBay stuff. I don't necessarily want all my own things. Bottom line, and I know Corey and I have talked about this in the past, but be very clear with what you want done with your stuff, be it comics or toys or family heirlooms or things like that. I've talked in the past about, your kids probably won't want it. So don't assume they want it, but ask. If you want something, not only write it down, preferably not on the item, but write it in a book and then have everybody initial it. Because I am so tired of going back and forth. Like, well, I said I wanted it, but you didn't say that. And again, my memory is not the best of things. I don't even remember half the things I say in this here podcast. But
that's why we record it.
Yeah. And that, and and even then, we don't remember when. If we really knew what the hell we were doing, we'd have our little footnotes. Bing, Corey and Joe referenced this in podcast number 567. And your editor.
No. Footnotes aren't cool anymore. That's why Marvel and DC don't do them.
Oh, yeah, but we could bring them back. Besides, we're kind of a half nostalgia show, aren't we? Finished up work for the week. Again, the boss is already talking about rejiggering the schedule, which again, in the middle of all this, we're all kind of happy that, okay, you got us. We're working. We're getting fully paid. We're not being exposed because we're all in teams. Well, we're going to rejigger everything. Dudes, the last bid you did was a cluster F of immense proportion. And now in the middle of all this, you say, oh, we're going to rebid. Oh, yeah, that inspires confidence in the workforce. That's already panicky that we're going to go home with the coronavirus. Well. So that's got a little bit more, and things happen fast too. You know, it's like when I left, it was like, yeah, they're not going to rebid till all this passes, probably in the summer. And really, in my business, not security, but the airline business, even if the economy recovers miraculously next week and everything's back to normal, it's going to take a long time for the airlines to get back to speed. I mean, and I'm not always talking, I'm talking from two things. First of all, watching them after 9/11, because they still weren't recovered by the time TSA set up. And the fact that even if all of a sudden everything went back, you go back to work, and if you've been out of work for a while, now you've got to get your money back, you got to get back up to speed. I'm sure you've got bills to pay, rent, mortgages to catch up on. You're not going to be taking trips. Business travelers may travel, but so people are asking, oh, we'll be back to normal. No, we won't. I could see at least airports being kind of a ghost town well through the summer. And again, I hope I'm wrong, but more often than not, I am. Corey, what are you freaking on?
One of my Facebook friends, Stephen Reed, puts up specific comics. He'll do the cover and the splash page. He's done 2000 AD. He is in the middle of Conan, and by in the middle of, I mean he's nearing the end. So he's putting up some covers and interior pages for Conan in the 200s. And it has gone from John Buscema to Joff Isherwood to Val Zemeckis, and then he put up a splash. And Joe asked me why I'm saying this is a freaking.
Because you can't afford it.
Oh no, I've got all these.
Oh, Corey, why is this a freaking instead of a geeking?
Because he's gotten to the point where Val Zemeckis, inked by Vince Coletta.
Oh.
And the weird thing is, you could tell Val Zemeckis' art. And Joe, you probably know his art from when he was on The Demon.
Yeah.
And this was before that, so he was still learning his style and everything. But, you know, it's okay art. And then there's that issue inked by Vince Coletta, and it looks like every other comic inked by Vince Coletta in 1987. Just bland and flat, and he got rid of all the personality on the page. It's just awful. And Stephen and I actually chatted a bit about Vince Coletta because, you know, he listens to the show, and he and I have talked about art in the past, and I told him the Steve Ditko Vince Coletta story, which, if you haven't heard, Steve Ditko, when he worked at Marvel, especially toward the end of his run on Amazing Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, you'll notice he inked himself because there were certain inkers he didn't like touching his work, one of whom was Vince Coletta. So toward the end, Steve would come in to drop off his art. He'd make sure to do it on the days Stan wasn't there because he did not get along with Stan very well. And he would be given, okay, here's all the stuff that we published because, you know, connected universe, you kind of need to know what other people are doing. Steve would look through the books, and anything that was inked by Vince Colletta, he would go into Stan's office and put those comics in Stan's garbage can so that Stan knew what Steve thought of Vince Coletta's inking. But just looking at it, it's like, oh, man, no wonder Conan sales went in the toilet. It looked so flat and so bland and so dull. And that was around the point where Conan sales started to drop at Marvel. Ugh.
This is one thing I won't comment a lot about, because while I was doing my sketchbook, you know who I missed getting a sketch from?
Vince Colletta?
Nope. Bernie Chan.
Oh!
I know. There are going to be so many times. I always hit myself over the head because the year I discovered the Superman versus Shazam book was the year after Gary Conway had been to an MCBA con, even though the book was out when he came to the con. So I could do stories like that forever, but I'm just going to deal with the ones I got.
And you're always the one who's taken off and wandering through the con, rather than being at the table all the time.
I don't do con sketches anymore. And when we get to the end of the convention book, the autograph book, I'll tell you why. But normally I just want to wander. I've got that wanderlust now. I really want to dig through some back issue bins and try to find some cool stuff and look for holes in my collection. Oh, look at I'm salivating. I better shut up. Corey, what else you got? Freaking on, sorry.
The first books being put out by the two new distributors are hitting comic shops, and Joe and I are both DCBS guys.
Yeah.
And we know their packaging. They've got this weird bubble wrap that's not really bubble wrap.
It's actually, I think it's bubble wrap for, like, if you're going to ship, like, a super fragile, heavy thing that if even gets breathed on, it'll break.
Yeah. So a lot of these shops are getting the packages using that weird bubble wrap, and they're going, what the hell is this? Because they're used to Diamond's setup.
Stuff them in as many as you can.
So they're like, oh my God, what's this? And it's okay, it's a different company. They're going to do things differently. If you go ahead and order through them, I still think that DC setting up with new distributors is a poor idea, and it is already starting to affect them because, Joe, you know how they have the recommendation, the Diamond Gems?
Yeah.
Diamond has pulled all of the DC gems from the current catalog. If you go to their website, Previews World, and look at the gems, there are no DC books there anymore. And I'm wondering, one of the things, to be a premier publisher, you have to be exclusive. Does this mean DC will no longer be a premier publisher?
Yeah, right.
We're going to find out a lot next month when things start to fire up again. And that's really all I'm freaking on because I've said in previous podcasts, the COVID-19, I know there are a lot of people out of work. I am not one of them, and I think 3 days last week, I literally was working from when I got up to when I got home and went to bed. I was so tired that I did tap out of covering wrestling on Wednesday because I was doing the apple bobbing thing, where your head just kind of goes down and then you snap up. And I knew I wouldn't make it through. I was right by 7:30. I was asleep on the couch, and I must have had my leg in a weird way because I woke up around 2 in the morning. And Joe, you know how if your leg's been asleep for a long, long time, it just doesn't work anymore?
Yeah.
I got up and was down on and just kind of boom on my knee. Got up, walked down the hall like I was completely hammered because it was okay. Swing the leg forward. Swing the leg forward. I just got to make it to my bed.
You didn't hit a light pole, did you?
No, there was nobody guiding me toward a light pole.
Okay, well, yeah, right, guiding you. That doesn't even rate as an incident.
Joe, what you geeking on?
You know, I really don't have a lot of geeking right now. I mean, things are going okay. I feel fortunate that, like you said, both Chris and I are still employed. We're essential employees. So, and I've reached out to some friends and family just to see how they're doing, especially people I haven't heard from in a while. All I really think about is did I ever talk my nuclear war scenario
Yes.
on the show?
Yep. Last week.
Yeah, I just keep thinking of that. It's like you snowflakes never would have last. You weren't tough enough to last in a nuclear war, wimps. But personally, I don't think we're near the end. I know people are thinking positive. I hope people can go back to work quick and get their lives back on track. But folks, I study history and I look at this is a freaking, but I just look at the Spanish influenza of 1918, and it's just before comic books were.
We all say 1918, but it was 1918 through 1920.
Yeah, and this was before comic books were invented. I had to knock someone on another page about, you really, especially the whole diamond thing. We don't know what's going to happen, folks. We haven't had a pandemic since before comic books were invented. So I am geeking, though, that I did find my copy of the American Comic Book Chronicles, both the 1980 to 1989 and the 1990 to 1999 edition. So I do believe I'm going to start with that and just read through those. They're kind of fun. My wife and I, we finished the Harry Potter movies. I don't know if we'd finished it the last time we recorded, and I'm still kind of I don't know. They were fun. The books are much more interesting because they're more detailed. But how big was that last Harry Potter book? Like 1,700 pages. I mean, it was massive. I think it almost was like omnibus size. So why that's a proper? I know they've tried to revisit the property with movies, but I keep thinking that could have been a comic book property. You could revisit. I'm sure there's little tales in there that, especially after the kids leave school. But, that's just me. I think everything could be a property. Babylon 5 could be a property. I got UFO and Space 1999 tied together in a property. If you don't know what that is, folks, you haven't been listening to the show long enough. And I got to admit, I do look forward to podcasting every week because I don't know if it's because I sat on my ass for 2 months before the pandemic hit, but I guess I'm ready to just sit at home, and I do go walk occasionally. I mean, I was bummed out yesterday, and I just couldn't shake it, so I just threw on the headphones and fell down the YouTube vortex for about an hour and a half. I feel a little bit better. So I know, disappointing geeking, but hey, I got happy feet. Oh yeah, woo, hey. No? Okay. Corey, what are you geeking?
One of the cool things about No New Comics is I'm finally making a dent in the unread stuff.
Oh, like those crazy comics that Jess Heitland did way back.
Oh yeah, those are on the list. But I've got a book of some old Little Archies.
Oh, I loved Little Archie.
With art by Bob Bowling, where they had a humor story, but then they would have kind of an adventure type story. Oh man, these are so good. Just the funny stories are, basically Archie stories without, you would think they'd be without the romance, but no, it's still, Betty and Veronica kind of sparring over who gets to be with Archie. Archie was not clumsy in these stories, which is kind of weird. He was a real athletic kid and was able to do stuff. He was the star of the football team and star of the basketball team. And I'm used to Archie being, kind of a klutz. Not as much of a klutz as he was in the 40s, because in the 40s, that was his character gimmick. No matter what, he would cause massive destruction by accident. That's why Mr. Lodge hated him so much. Now they've pretty much in the humor stories, they have it happen once in a while, but that was the pervasive thing back then. But no, the little Archie stories, he's kind of the star of the school, but they're still funny and everything. But man, the adventure stories, what cool stories. And I kind of wish that they would do something like that for the young adult crowd. I think those would be really cool, like the DC young adult books, where use that same sort of feel, and they weren't as elaborate as the Carl Barks stuff for the Disney Ducks, but they still have that same kind of feel to them, which is just so cool. I love that stuff. Love that stuff. I am starting to read the Bendis Superman. Yes, that's how far behind I am.
I'm looking to actually sell mine.
And the first story where Earth is trapped in the Phantom Zone, and then the Action Comic story where there's a new head of the mob, the Red Cloud. The stories are okay. I think one of the reasons why it did not, because people are saying, oh, it's not blowing away the sales chart. I think it's because Bendis didn't come in like he did on Avengers and other books where it's, he had, boom, he blows everything up and restarts. This was more okay, I'm not going to ignore the stuff that's gone before. We're going to kind of just keep it going and introduce new concepts and new ideas. And I actually like that approach, especially when over at DC, people are really irritated about the fact that they take their continuity and they throw it out the window every couple of years. Bendis is actually using that continuity and building on it, which are two of the things that people say he doesn't do, and two of the things that DC doesn't do. So I'm really, really liking those. I also read the first 6 issues of The Batman's Grave, which is the Warren Ellis, Brian Hitch story. Brian Hitch's art is very different from what I'm used to. I'm used to him having the very detailed Alex Ross style hyper-realism to his art. And this feels looser, sketchier. But it really works for the story. It's Warren Ellis kind of doing a Batman story. And the story itself isn't anything super unique. Just the way he's delving into Batman's personality and Commissioner Gordon's personality. And he's doing the snide, sarcastic Alfred. Better than anyone's done the snide, sarcastic Alfred in ages. The best thing about it is any scene Alfred's in, I think Warren Ellis is blowing it away. The rest is kind of, your standard Batman story. And then the last book I am geeking on, let me pull it up here because let me pull this out.
Thought it was a giant-sized man thing revamp.
No. It's John Buscema, the Michelangelo of comics. It goes into, basically it's John Buscema's life story with examples of his art, talking about when he worked for comics in the late 40s, early 50s, how he left comics because basically a lot of people left comics because there just wasn't enough work, and how he kind of got coerced into coming back. The best part of it, though, is the introduction by Roy Thomas, where he talks about his relationship with John and how, John called everybody an idiot. John hated everybody in comics, but he still loved them. Like, he told a story where, when he left Marvel, people at Marvel, when Roy Thomas left Marvel, people at Marvel would say, yeah, John called you an idiot today. And that's what John does. And Roy didn't take it, he didn't take it real personally, because a few years later, John plotted, drew, and inked a Conan graphic novel, but he called Roy out of the blue and said, yeah, I can't do dialogue. Can you do the scripting for this? And that's when he knew that, John wouldn't have given that to anybody he didn't like. Just a really good book about John Buscema, who I don't think he ever did an interview in the comics press, ever. I've never seen one. Outside of comics, because I'm working all these extra shifts, I finally bought me a sound bar for my TV, Joe.
You didn't tell me what brand or anything.
Yamaha.
Model number?
I will give you that off the air because
Okay.
I have to wander. Well, why don't I wander over and get the?
Yeah. We hate to leave that. We got so many questions that are left hanging in our show that no sense leaving that one, because I was telling my wife we need to get a sound bar. I'm getting old. You're listening to something, grand music, and all of a sudden, hey, we got. Wait, what did they say? And on a DVD you can just rewind it, but like when you're streaming, you gotta like restream the entire freaking thing. Very, very annoying. So, but I said, Corey got a deal on a soundbar. I said, well, get the model number of it. Maybe we'll order it.
YAS 109.
YAS 109, and my baby gonna buy me a YAS 109. No, I don't need the Beatles pissed at me. They just did a sing along with Yellow Submarine, so I had no sense having one here.
You can, once you get the app on your phone, you can add Alexa to it. You can add Spotify to it. You can Bluetooth your music into it. It hooks up to the TV really easily. It only took me about 20 minutes to get everything set up. And 7 minutes of that was downloading the app and putting in all my passwords and everything. And there's one minor freaking.
Uh-oh. Well, it's okay. I've been flipping the freaking and geeking all day, so go for it.
Well, you know how I have Alexa in my house, and you can change the wake-up word? So I have changed the wake-up word for my Alexa to computer.
No longer? Ah, that was good.
Because that's what they did on Star Trek. You can't do it with the soundbar. You have to use Alexa.
Well, good. I don't have Alexa, so I won't worry about it.
Well, once you get the soundbar, you'll have Alexa.
And I'll have to muzzle her.
Well, you have to turn it on, but you may want to because, oh man, do you get a lot of free music.
As if I don't got enough already. Cable, Pandora, Spotify, YouTube's.
Yeah, you could connect your Spotify to it, but the sound coming out of it is really good, so you may want to connect it so you can listen to your music. And it's also really fun to just every so often go, Alexa,
play me something I can masturbate by.
Basically, you can say a band like every so often. I'll just go, play Rush, and it'll play Rush songs for like 2 hours. So really, really, really geeking on that. TV-wise, what little time I have, Comet, an over-the-air, one of those digital networks, is showing Mystery Science Theater 3000. So I have my DVR record them. So anytime it's a really good show for when I don't want to watch anything really intense. I'll sit down with Joel and the Bots or Mike and the Bots and watch a bad movie and listen to them make fun of it. And that is really, really helpful when it's really, really stressful. Believe it or not, kids, you have listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
Thank you.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
What do you call a gang of thieves breaking into a musical instrument store and stealing only stringed instruments? Looters. It cracked me up. Hit my music.
We done, bitches.